accolades come out, like we're the most livable city, someone like me is like, for who? My friends are college educated and, have careers, but they're not living the same life as maybe their white peers.
When you got developers that continue to put it through the foreclosure program, where you got grandmothers that sleep in the morning so the other grandma can sleep at night, where you got people living in the stair hole, feces and urine all in the stair halls, where you got on every floor dope, and these grandmothers got to live like that. So for the rest of their life, they got to live in fear. You got roaches that ain't scared of nothing. You got 20 floors of this. That's trauma. You got a girl that gets stuck with an intravenous needle. That's trauma. What do you do with that? When I first took URA through the building, I told them when they went through the building, I said, let's do one floor. They said, nah, Ed, we used to tearing down projects. Everybody select the floor, and then when we select the floor, we'll get done faster. When they got off the 20th floor and that crack cocaine hit their nose, they had no idea. When they went to hit the laundry room and they seen somebody laying in the laundry room, they had no idea what was going on. There ain't nobody, listen, I'm for keeping property, but I am not for people living in prison. In prison don't always have to be bars. If one grandma gotta stay up for another grandma to go to sleep, that is unhealthy in every aspect of the word unhealthy.
And today in Pittsburgh, and today in the Pittsburgh region, our systems work brilliantly for about 70% of our people, and hardly at all for 25 to 30% of our people.
We love to tout that we're the second most livable city in the country, and we wear that on our sleeve, but there are real, true economic and social traumas happening all over that we continue to ignore.
There are also serious flaws with how we prepare kids in this country for kindergarten. Two kids show up on day one of kindergarten. One of them is ready to learn, the other one is not ready to learn. What's the difference? The one who's ready to learn had access to pre-K education, while the kid who isn't ready to learn didn't have access to pre-K education. How did the first kid have access? Well, their parents were able to pay for that kid to go to a pre-K, while the other kid's family didn't have the ability to pay for them to get pre-K education. So right away, both kids are 5 years old, and one of them is already substantially ahead, and the person who is substantially ahead is also going to be able to learn at an accelerated rate, so that the gap is going to get wider and wider and wider between the two kids as they move further and further and further on in their education.
Yeah, all hold hands.
I'm sure that without education, change is costly. And I believe that if you're not educating the people in that district and preparing them for the change to come, then you're going to have a gap in society. And you see that in Pittsburgh right now.
One can only dream as big as the reality is. So their vision can only be as big as their world is. If their world is a small world, their vision is going to be a small vision. Unless they have kind of the ability to see a lot more of the opportunities that exist, their dreams are going to be relatively small and relatively narrow. And some of us are blessed with opportunities and with exposure and with awareness of what's happening out there. Others are not. So the Pittsburgh Promise is giving kids the ability to think outside and beyond just the 4 or 5 square blocks with which they're familiar. And if we don't give them those opportunities, then their vision, their dream will be only as big as those 4 or 5 square blocks.
Don't live for too small a thing. There's greatness that is in your future.
There's a lot of people pretending like they know what's going to happen in the economy in the next 20 or 30 years, right? They're speculating wildly about what skills we need to be instilling into 15, 16, and 17-year-old kids. But the reality is that the change that's coming is unlike anything the human race has ever experienced. It's not the Industrial Revolution, it's not agriculture, it's going to be something that's exponentially more difficult to overcome. So the best we can do as good citizens here in Pittsburgh in 2018 is try to look forward 5-10 years and give people meaningful skills that give themselves and their family a livelihood. The problem is we don't do a good job of that. We don't do a good job sending that information deeply into communities where the most economic need is, and we don't do a good enough job being honest and authentic about what those skills are that are immediately employable. What we do is we ask people to gamble with their future and take out tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to get certifications and degrees from experts and really smart people that have no more ability to predict what's going to happen in 2030 than I do. And so what we try to do with Academy Pittsburgh is give you condensed technical training that we know is immediately employable, and we intend to change that condensed technical training as the need changes so that we're sure that we're doing an honest and authentic service to the people that we're trying to help.
The dirty little secret in American higher education is this: only about 53% of the kids in our country who begin a 4-year program finish it within 6 years. 53% of our kids start and finish a 4-year degree within 6 years of beginning. That's it. That's the national data. For the Pittsburgh Promise kids, it's approaching 70% are starting and finishing.
If you're going to change anything, you change it through education. You know, you asked me why I ran for politics. If I wouldn't have met a politician that gave me an education, I couldn't be talking to you today. So to me, it's education that changes a lot of the lens that we see.
And all my teachers weren't black teachers either, you know, so it's not a matter of I have to have a black teacher to give me a great education. One of my most impactful teachers was also a white woman who, when I was in the 6th grade, she let me know that I'm very smart and that I should always strive to go higher than I think I can go. And that was by her simply telling me and my mother that you should take Ashley to the Ellis School and test. I just really think that she needs to experience that. I didn't know what that meant then, and I was also a student that was like, Mom, I don't want to go to school with all girls. But I went, I shadowed the school, I took the test, I didn't pass, but the experience itself still let me know that I'm capable.
We have a public K-12 system in this country because there once was a time when a 12th grade education could get you a decent job with which you can make a decent living and support your family. Those days are long gone, and those days are not coming back. So if we created an educational system that was public to prepare people for jobs, well, the current system that we have in place is no longer it. There needs to be a replacement for the system. At minimum, another 2 years post-high school, ideally 4 years post-high school for those who want it. Now, I recognize that that is an expensive idea. Our graduates from our urban public schools are either going to be your employees, or they're going to be your customers, or they're going to be a drain on your social services. You want them as employees and as customers. You have a stake at that.
So it's very difficult to say that the education that we received here has prepared us for today's economy. It didn't. It prepared us for yesterday's economy because we're coming out of the steel mill. We're coming out of labor. We're still manufacturing, but the manufacturing is more intellectual now than it is with hands. And so the catch is, how do we prepare this generation for it?
People, the workers in Pittsburgh, they won World War II. You know, they built the Empire State Building. They built the Verrazzano's Bridge. And we've left and we've abandoned a whole, generation of people who became part of the Steeler Nation, right? People that had to leave town, and we lost half our population. And African American workers were the last to come in to get those jobs, and they were the first fired. So that was a path to middle classdom for them as well. We're talking about turning toward a new economy, but the people before us, we've built our whole nation on their shoulders. We can't leave them behind.
So I grew up in Homewood. The Homewood that I remember is vastly different from the Homewood that I've experienced as an adult here now. I remember we had corner stores, we had farmers markets, we had family-owned businesses, like up and down Homewood Avenue in Frankstown.
You have an African American community that has not prospered. You have a Caucasian community that has prospered. And in many ways, out of 15 major metropolitan cities, Pittsburgh is the only one that don't have a black middle class neighborhood. That's why they say that Pittsburgh is the tale of two cities.
there's a lot of regions that want to become the next Silicon Valley. And I think we obviously have some strengths there now as well with Google and with some of the other industries coming in. You know, we had good bones here. You know, this was a strong union town, a town that made things. We made steel. Westinghouse made giant turbines, you know, throughout these valleys. The jobs that I think we need here are jobs that can put people with a high school degree to work or people with a few years of college to work. I want to see the Googles of the world, the new technology industries of the world survive, but I also want to see us continue to make things.
When I started my company, when I started Nosland and I was in Ascender, I remember thinking like, okay, how am I going to grow? Boom, light bulb comes in, like, wow, there's groups of people who may also need access to flexible income, right? So I really started Nosland on the basis of like, there's so many high rises, there's so many older women, and we have a huge aging population. People are living longer. How do we provide opportunities for them? We have women who are single mothers. We have women who are older, who take care of their grandchildren, who may be on fixed incomes. That's another huge part of Nosland is women who are on fixed incomes who really can't make a lot of extra money, but need that like extra money. I don't care if you're spending it on bingo or on your gas bill, like extra money is extra money. Me as an entrepreneur, like when I first started, I would have not known the first place to go. I started as a young girl in Homewood who was just like finding her way. I'm working at a coffee shop. I was back in school for nursing. I literally had no idea what I was gonna do. So having to start in such a way where I had to like carve away, right? And if it wasn't for someone like Jennifer who said, hey, there's this place called Ascender who, like, they have a new cycle coming up, you should apply, I would have never even thought about applying, right? Even if I would have ran across it without that, like, affirmation that, like, oh, you should do this. I did not know that I was applying to go into, like, an extremely huge, large space that I was unfamiliar. I just knew I wanted to, like, get money for my business and grow. Like, okay, I'm gonna try this out. Had I been like given access to more things sooner in life and to networks and to people that could have really helped push me forward sooner, then I wouldn't have had such a hard, rocky start. So in that, I always try to remember like how important it is to like look back and reach back and say, okay, what do you need help with? Because I'm here and I know I'm a wealth of information. How do I help you find the tools that you need to succeed so that you don't have to like take as long as I took?
For the most part, a lot of this activity helps those who have access to it to begin with. And in many ways, it's often not even people from Pittsburgh. It's people who come here to go to school or who, there are a lot of boomerangs, but there is this positive feedback cycle, and even starts with awareness. Like those that know that entrepreneurship and building their own business is even an option, let alone an aspiration. Those are the folks that then move into the pipeline and ultimately dabble in this field.
Accessibility is so important, and granting people who are not generally in the in club or in the in family or in the in crowd that access and allowing them to feel comfortable regardless of their background, but regardless of their sexual orientation, having them feel comfortable that they can also follow their dreams. Like dreams aren't just and success is not just for one certain kind of person, Everyone is entitled to success. Everyone's entitled to success in their own right, because success has a different definition for everyone, but anyone who really, really works hard and wants it should be able to attain it.
We're interested in understanding how more and different kinds of people can participate in the economy, and more frightening what the economy is about to become in the next, say, 2 or 3 decades. So entrepreneurship for us is about lowering the barrier to entry, including more people, providing real training and skill building in verticals and in ways that actually give people a chance to better themselves. And we want to be able to share the inherent wealth created by these business incubator systems broadly with hundreds of people, give people more financial security to pursue the things that they're most interested in, let our entrepreneurs flourish, not get hung up on what the West Coast is doing, not get hung up on 10x returns, just generally make good, solid businesses that give people livelihoods.
I literally remember starting Knotsland on a sewing machine, on an ironing board in my living room in the middle of the summertime, no AC, sweating to death. My brother would come in from work at like 10 p.m. He would wake up for work at 4 a.m. and be like, "You are still at the sewing machine," because I just knew that there was something that I wanted to do that was bigger than me. And like I had got hit with that force and that power, and I was just like, I'm going with it.
You know, Pittsburgh, I very quickly came to know, is so clearly delineated by its 90 neighborhoods and where the rivers run and what lines people cross and don't cross. And so a lot of that almost determinism around what a community's identity means to themselves and to the people who are viewing them, and many times passing judgment, like unfair judgment, on their capacity and potential. There's a lot of inertia that is maintained here.
Companies will say, oh, we're trying to do outreach, so we'll do internships or we'll do apprenticeships and things like that, where they won't pay people enough that they can even like hang out with the people they work with, right? Like they make so much less, they can't do things like go to lunch with them. Like, so everyone that's a developer is like, hey, let's go to lunch on Wednesdays or whatever. But the people that they're trying to outreach to, trying to pull in, they won't pay them enough that they can do things like go get lunch, and they just automatically segregate them just by not paying them enough. So there are all kinds of things like that that happen that make people who are not ingrained into the culture, who are not accepted into the culture and part of it yet, feel like they are not welcome. So it's something that we try to tell other companies, and also just things like when I go to conferences, when I talk to people who are doing interviews of my students, like talk to them about these things, because it's important that they know what it is they're doing is making it hard for people that are new to actually stick around and thrive.
If we talk about right here today, development doesn't happen overnight, right? You didn't develop overnight, I didn't develop overnight. So I can't expect us to say, tomorrow we're gonna have a microwave mill and we're gonna have a new Wilkinsburg. But I think in time, you're beginning to see some of the things that can change Wilkinsburg. You know, I don't know what the commercial district can be yet. I think they're working on that. I'm not sure. It's gonna have to be able to connect to, as you said, the technology boom, because that's the new industry inside of Allegheny County and the city of Pittsburgh. But we have to prepare our kids to be prepared for that. And that's why you have to diversify the culture. If you want people to stay, then we need something that keeps people here.
We hope that new industries, as they come to town, widen their lens and see themselves in the context of this great place that has this DNA that's about being a good neighbor and being involved in one another's life. See them being here not only as a gift to us who are here, but also as a privilege for them who are coming to get to be here, to get to be a part of the fabric and culture of this very special place.